Welcome to Natural and Manufactured Fibers by Cheryl Sauls. Fiber is the smallest unit of a textile. It's where all fabric or textiles begin. So whether you have the short staple fibers from the cotton plant that feels like little itty bitty hairs, or the long filament fibers from silkworms, it's the beginning of all fabric. Fibers have many different characteristics, which include wicking, strength, durability, absorbency, resiliency, elasticity. Knowing the different fiber characteristics will help you choose your fabrics. We have a variety of different fibers. We have natural fibers, which are cellulosic, plant-based, and those include cotton, which comes from the cotton plant, linen, which comes from the flax plant, and bamboo, which comes from the actual bamboo plant that you see in the background. Your natural protein fibers come from animals, and they include wool from sheep, silk from silkworms, and then your specialty fibers, which come from goats and rabbits. The specialty fibers include Angora, which this is an Angora rabbit, your cashmere, which comes from a goat. It's a slightly different texture of fur, so the fibers have a different property and feel. And then your mohair goats have a curlier fiber hair. They are rarely found 100% in a garment because they would be too expensive. So you see them blended more so than being 100% cashmere or 100% mohair Angora. Cotton, it's a staple fiber, meaning it's a very short fiber, and it's commonly blended with other fibers because it is inexpensive. It's soft, absorbent, and comfortable, wrinkles easily, absorbs perspiration quickly so it will keep you cool in the summer, strong and durable, inexpensive, doesn't peel, and it blends well with other fibers. Flax is commonly called linen. It comes from the flax plant. It's the oldest natural fiber. It's cool and comfortable and breathable, wrinkles easily, and very strong and durable. Protein fibers come from animal sources. Wool and silkworms are the main two that we find in our clothing today. Wool has great wicking properties, and it allows moisture to evaporate from the body, carrying the liquid or your perspiration up through the fibers and then evaporating out of the top of the fibers. It's a great protein fiber because of its wicking capabilities, and the ability to wick the moisture away from your skin will keep you warm. Acrylic is the man-made or manufactured fiber that mimics wool. It is not very high in abrasion resistance, meaning that it's going to get peels or balls on it. Sheep's wool is an excellent animal protein staple fiber. Remember that the only filament fibers that are natural come from your silkworms. Wool is hard wearing and absorbs moisture. It's a natural insulator. It does not wrinkle. It traps odors, which is a disadvantage, and it is flame resistant. Silk, as I said, is the only filament fiber, meaning it's a very, very long fiber, not short like the staple fibers from your animals or cotton. It's versatile and very comfortable. It's a protein fiber because it comes from an animal. It comes from the actual cocoon, which is boiled to sort out the silk fibers. It's a filament fiber, cool to wear in the summer, yet it can keep you warm in the winter. It's also the strongest natural fiber and has its own natural luster. Manufactured fibers can be made into staple or filament fibers. They are also blended very well. There are two different types of manufactured fibers. You have cellulosic fibers, which are made from plant life, mainly wood pulp. And then you have non-cellulosic fibers, which combine molecules of nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon to create the non-cellulosic fibers. And then they are extruded through a spinneret to create your fibers. Here are a variety of different kinds of manufactured fibers. The rayon fiber is the first manufactured fiber, and it also feels like silk, has a nice draping ability. Acetate is the next one, which mimics satin. If you think about the inside of the linings that you find in your dresses or jackets, that is acetate if it's not 100% satin. Nylon is used to make pantyhose and lingerie. Olefin is used in carpet and upholstery fabric. It's a very strong and durable fiber. Polyester is the one manufactured fiber that is blended the most with your natural fibers. It resists wrinkles, and it's also very high in resiliency, so you can stretch it and it will go back without leaving a permanent indentation. Spandex is extremely stretchy and used in swimwear and workout wear. Acrylic, which is fake wool, has a low abrasion resistance. And then lyocell or tencel is the newest manufactured fiber, and it blends with other fibers due to its high cost. It's often found in garments such as golf shirts and your performance wear. Elasticity is one of your characteristics that we see a lot of. This spandex world is actually in New York, where I get a lot of my spandex from. You find it in exercise wear, swimsuits, and even dance costumes are excellent examples of fabric with high elasticity. Next we come to the weaves and different types of weaves. We have the plain weave, which is the most basic of the three fundamental types of textile weaves. It's strong and hard-wearing, easy to sew for beginners. This is what I always recommend that my students use for their beginning projects, because it is a woven fabric and it has zero stretch to it. In the plain weave, the warp and weft threads cross at right angles with each other. Fabrics that are made with the plain weave are seersucker, cotton quilted fabric, muslin, and taffeta. So this is an example of a seersucker suit. You can see the seersucker here. And then your basic quilting cotton and muslin. Twill weave is a diagonal weave. It's very, very durable. You see it in gabardine and denim. And it creates a diagonal line when it is woven correctly. Satin weave in fabric is very lustrous, but the satin weave also snags very easily because the fibers are not, or the yarns are not woven together very tightly. Satin is not very durable because it shows picks and snags only after a few wears. Papaya weave can be found in fabrics that have a bumpy feel or like a texture that stands up. So examples would be terry cloth, towels, corduroy fabric, and also velvet. If you brush your corduroy or velvet one way, you see that it shines, and if you brush it back the other way, you can see that it's dull or has a darker appearance. That is due to the way that the fabric is actually woven into having that little pile of hair-like fibers that stick up. Knitting is the process of looping yarns together. We have weft knit and warp knit. Weft knit uses only one yarn for construction process. It stretches and runs in a lengthwise direction here. Weft knitting is a knitted piece of fabric where the stitches run from left to right horizontally across the fabric. So you can see that they're just looped together using one yarn. So your basic crochet scarf that Granny might make you is typically with your weft knit. The warp knit is a stretchy fabric construction process that uses multiple yarns on a flat knitting machine. So this is your warp knitting. I want to point out also with the weft knit, this is the process that's used in the circular knitting often, and if you ever had one of those circular knitting machines when you were younger, you know that you had to crank the circle and you had one yarn, and that one yarn would spin this long scarf. So Just think about that when you're doing it. Knitting in general just means the process of looping yarns together. Non-wovens are basically fabric that has been melted or glued together. Examples that you may have seen are felt, disposable medical gowns, even baby diapers, and interfacing that we would use in the sewing process to give stiffness to collars or waistbands, or anything that would basically need some type of stiffness added to. Fiber dyeing is the process that produces the most color-fast fabric. This is when the fiber is dyed before spinning it. Dyeing the fiber is going to make your color last longer. That is what color fast means. Whenever something is color fast, it's not going to fade. So for instance, if you have a pair of black jeans that fade off onto your skin, then that more than likely has been garment dyed. Whereas if the fiber is actually dyed and then spun into yarn, it's not going to fade, it's going to last a lot longer. Yarn dyeing is the dyeing of the yarns before they have been woven or knitted into fabric. So we have our fiber that has now been spun into yarn, and then that yarn is taken and dyed as one big long piece of yarn, or maybe like a roll of yarn. Yarn dyeing is used to create fabrics where you see the same print on both sides, like checks, stripes, and plaids, so that you can take the different colored yarns and weave them together to make a certain end product. Piece dyeing is when you dye an entire roll of fabric after it has been woven or knitted. Sometimes it's called batch dyeing, and it's basically just where you through the dye back onto another roll, and is then shipped to the manufacturer as a complete rolled piece. This is the cheapest form of dyeing fabric and yarns. Garment dyeing is when you dye the whole garment after it's been sewn together or constructed. You can do tie-dye, you can do acid wash, you can do your gradation here with the different types of dyes that you see, or the ombre effect, different colored jeans, just lots of different things that you can use garment dyeing for. In the industry, whenever you are a bridesmaid and they go and they say, okay, we have to order all of these at one time, it's because they want everything to look the same exact color, because no matter how many times you use the same exact formula, there may be a slight difference in color, and on colors like purples, you can see that difference in the color if it's not all dyed together. So they'll dye the complete garment after it's been sewn together. Now we're going to move into printing, and the rotary printing or rotary screen printing uses these metal cylinders here, and each cylinder has a different design with a different color dye that comes through it. So as the fabric rolls through, it disperses that color dye with that image onto the fabric. So that's a rotary screen printer. Digital print fabric is just basically designing something on the computer and then printing it onto fabric with a inkjet or laser printer. When we do our fabric design project for the honors projects, you guys will actually be designing your own fabric and getting it printed at Spoonflower in Durham so that you can have your own printed fabric. The last of the printing is heat transfer printing, which is basically just printing a computer generated design onto print paper, and then it is ironed on or applied using this heat press machine here. For heat press or heat transfers that you want to stay on for a really long time, you would need a really high heat with the machine that you would use here. You actually, as designers, if you wanted to test something out, you can print it, you can buy the paper at your local office supply place and print your own, but it doesn't stay on as well as your actual heat transfers. And then your screen printing is the process of just creating mesh screens to push the ink through each screen, and each color gets its own different screen, unless you're as good as these guys are, where you can do a variety of them at one time.